Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. So we're on a mystery trail here, and this time we're going to focus on the Sacra Corona Unita, or SCU. So the Sacra Corona Unita is one of the most dangerous criminal organisations in Italy. In the 80s and 90s it reached its peak and created a large number of powerful mafiosi. The Fourth Mafia, as the Sacra Corona Unita is often called, introduced the world to many ambitious bosses, and among them Alberto Lorusso stands out for his particularly interesting history. Now, not much is known about his life and his criminal achievements, but everyone knows him for being the confidant of Totò Riina during his years in the prison in Opera in the north of Italy, where Riina ended up being incarcerated until his death. Now, there's always been many rumours about Larusso, and the media have tried in every way to reveal his origins and his background, but not always successfully. He passed himself off as an SCU boss, but he actually wasn't one. Despite this, he was still able to gain the trust of the boss of bosses and be the recipient of Riina's last statements. So Alberto's achieved his fame in a very different way than other famous criminals. In fact, his character jumps the attention of the authorities and journalists only by the time he's already in jail. It's 2013 when the mafioso is transferred to the Opera prison by the authorities. The aim is to make him take on the role of carer and friend of the boss Riina. Well, as you may be aware, mafiosi like Riina are incarcerated in highly isolated and secluded conditions, but they're entitled to one friend to be able to have some social interaction even whilst they're imprisoned. Now, Larusso was chosen by the National Anti-Mafia Directorate because he's safe and not a very dangerous subject. In fact, the mafioso had been behind bars since 1994, and over the years had isolated himself, losing contact with family members and affiliates. He seemed to be the most suitable person to associate with Riina. The thinking goes you don't want to have someone who has a lot of contact with the outside world to be Riina's prison mate because of the obvious risk of becoming a potential messenger for the boss of bosses. But during the recreational hours spent together, Alberto unexpectedly managed to gain the trust of the Capo dei Capi and to make him reveal some important truths. The talks between the two last for about 9 months, and the authorities are immediately put on alert. What is Riina planning? Is there a new threat on the horizon? Even if it was the justice system that placed Larusso near the boss, Alberto has never been an informant. How did he manage to approach Totò Riina so easily and so well? Well, the general public think of Larusso as an SCU boss, but as we've said before, this wasn't the case. He seems to be a petty criminal, but even this itself isn't quite the truth either. So let's dive a bit deeper into Larusso's actual past. He was born in 1959 in Montemessola in the province of Taranto in the southern region of Puglia. He has many brothers, and from a very early age he began to understand that the world of crime pays much better than honest work. So he begins to get involved in drug trafficking and to associate with the mafia. It's believed he tried in vain to become a member of the SCU. He had some distant relatives who were members, but for reasons unknown he didn't join the organisation. So instead he created one of his own that worked in parallel with the SCU. From Grottaglie he organises homicides, corpse concealment and drug trafficking. His clan influences that neutral territory which sort of fell between the cracks of the mainstream crime organisations. And in the meantime, Larusso exchanges favours with the SCU mafiosi and continued to dominate his area without causing too many problems. And this is why, upon his arrest, he was never considered a boss of the Sacra Corona Unita, or indeed even an affiliate of it, even though he had an entire clan of ruthless criminals under his command. So Alberto isn't actually a petty criminal, nor an SCU boss. What he was a slightly eccentric personality, a bit solitary and silent. Before his arrest, he gets married, then divorced, and later he starts a relationship with a farm worker from which he has children. In the early 90s, he's convicted for mafia association and ends up in the prison of Taranto, but the bars don't stop his ambition. In fact, he continues his management of drug trafficking, but his activities end up being discovered by prison surveillance. His punishment included being subject to the 41 bis regime, which is the tough prison protocol reserved specifically for top criminals and many mafia bosses. Yet, Larusso remains extraordinarily powerful, and even from jail he exerts a certain influence on his group. For this reason, he's first transferred to Voghera, then to Brescia, Novara and Cuneo, a number of prisons in the north of Italy, where he'd be further from his territory and therefore from his area of influence. Alberto is forced to serve the 41 bis regime, and during his years in prison, he proves to be shy, isolated and very interested in reading and learning about the law. He graduates in accounting and continues his studies with an interest in terrorism. And this may be because he seemed to become close to a left-wing terrorist imprisoned with him. Many times he's denied a chance to obtain books he wanted to read, and Alberto doesn't fail to resort to his lawyers and clash with prison authorities as a result. He wants to know and wants to let the world know about the terrible conditions in which he lives in prison. So, after all the internal appeals are exhausted, as a last resort he sends a letter of complaint to the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg, which has jurisdiction over Italian citizens. So Larusso is not a mafioso who allows himself to be bossed around by anyone. He's a tough character. Yet despite this, and surprisingly, he becomes Riina's confessor. And during the conversations, he proves to be very knowledgeable about the state mafia trial. And this alarms the police and law enforcement authorities. The mafia investigation units hide numerous bugs in the courtyard where the two mafiosi are walking, and Riina's words make them think of a new drift or conflict within the mafia. The Taps also report the disturbing jokes of the Capo dei Capi on mafia prosecutor Di Matteo, and jokes about the killing of Di Giovanni Falcone, describing that as the killing of a good tuna fish. Larusso is good at asking questions. He seems to know his stuff and manages to guide the Capo dei Capi in the direction he wants. Riina finally opens up after years of silence. Yet the reason for his apparent confidence was unclear. Did he suspect of Larusso's motives? Were his confessions true, in fact? Or did he want to use him as a tool to threaten magistrates? Totò Riina's death has prevented us from knowing just how true some of his threats were. The public today has only heard a selection of the wiretaps that recorded those discussions between Riina and Larusso. Only the authorities know all the secrets revealed during those conversations. Truth or lies, many will never know. The fact is that Alberto Lorusso was an important figure close to the Capo dei Capi in his final moments of life. Not a simple pawn, but an ambitious and intelligent mafioso, an enemy of the forces of law and a criminal who was at times a bit of an enigma. So there you have it, another fascinating character in the annals of Italian organised crime. So as always, we hope you enjoyed this one. We do appreciate all your support and of course those comments, so do keep them coming. Until next time, ciao for now.